Well, I didn't think they'd do it, but LSS saved Katsu. They actually rented a cool, interesting card that kind of does everything Katsu really wants it to do. It's no bonds, but Retrace the Past is, I think, a really good card. It's a blue 0 for 4 go again. If you've played a Gust Wave already, and the deck plays a lot of Gust Waves, I just kind of want to go over all the combo cards that I think could see play and discuss if I think they're good or not. The first one I want to discuss, which is probably the most obvious one, Fluster Fist. If open the center was the last attack this combo chain, Fluster Fist has +1 for each attack that has hit this combat chain. So that means that anytime I draw Descendant plus, or Gust Wave plus the new Retrace, I can search my deck with Katsu's ability for Fluster Fist, and I basically have on-demand Salt Wound this turn. That seems really strong. So, Fluster Fist is going to probably be regularly coming in for 8 or 9 nowadays in the Katsu deck. I'm pretty excited for this combo. It really seems like the best thing to be doing off of Retrace, but it's not the only thing we can do. We can play a lot of Gust Waves in the same turn, right? We can play a Descendant Gust Wave, and then a Retrace, and then another Gust Wave, and then, another Retrace. That seems okay. That doesn't seem like anything crazy. Break Tide is another weird one. If Rushing River or Flood of Force was the last attack this combat chain, this card gains +3, Dominate, and when it hits, banish the top card of your deck until the end of your next turn you may play it. It's a 0 for 5 Ender that also triggers Shuko. That's mostly why it's here. I think the text is fine. It's nothing crazy though. Like a third of your deck is cards that you don't particularly want to play off the top, and you can't always ensure that your next turn is going to be able to play out, all of your cards. But, you can definitely think about this as a Shuko Ender against Enigma, baby. Speaking of Shuko Enders against Enigma, I think specifically Yellow Chi Unleashed seems pretty playable in this deck now because it's an ender that you can play against Enigma that gets triggers Shuko. So if you go Descendant Gust Wave into Retrace Reality for 4 go again, naming Crouching Tiger, and then attack with Chi Unleashed, it's a 7, can't be prevented. So that seems pretty strong if your Enigma opponent has some ward on the board. Something to think about. Maybe like a 1-of in the deck might be okay, and just Arsenal it against Enigma and kind of wait on it until they have a board set up. But specifically the yellow, because this one triggers Shuko. Obviously, Dishonor is what this card was built to enable. Bonds of Ancestry was banned, but now you can name Bonds of Ancestry with Retrace the Past, and then this attack will get +2, and if you do the whole Surging Descendant Bonds line, then it has the on-hit. Usually that on-hit, it's not it's not usually happening, but it's something your opponent always has to think about, that you could always end with Dishonor, so they might not want to block as early on in the chain. Especially decks like Kano just instantly loses to this card. Viscerai really struggles when they get hit. Azalea, decks like that. So they really have to think about, I have to keep cards in order to make sure that I'm blocking at the end. With Find Center, we can play Retrace into Find Center, naming Crane Dance in order to make a Zen State token. And if you go Surging into Whelming Gust Wave into Retrace into Find Center, well, that's 4 chain links. So this Find Center is basically unblockable. And when it hits, they'll make a Zen State token. Note that your opponent can block with Armor. Because Armor doesn't have a cost. It doesn't have a cost less than the number of chain links you control. So it's not quite as good as we want it to be. Maybe try and combine this with Razor Reflex or something like that to make sure that we hit. One card that I was kind of excited for, but I've decided doesn't work, is Sunkiss. It says if you have played a card named Moonwish this turn, draw a card, and Sunkiss gains go again. Unfortunately, with the retraceability, it only gains the name after you've played the card, so you haven't actually played a Moonkiss, you just have a Moonkiss. But that means that if we have, a Crazy Brew, then we can just play Life of the Party for 0, destroying the Retrace on the chain, and if we do, it's a 0 for 8 go again, which seems crazy. This will probably be in the deck. It seems pretty good to if you actually can do that. So recoil is a little bit of disruption that we can play if we retrace name head jab and then attack with recoil. If it hits, they put a card from their hand on top of their deck. It's okay. They'll probably just block, but if there's some decks that really don't want to block, then we can make sure that we can disrupt them a little bit at the end of our chain. But this card doesn't have go again. It's a little weak, so we'll probably have better things to be playing. And Cyclone Roundhouse. This card saw a little bit of play in the heavy hitters meta when Katsu was, a pretty good deck. Usually only as a one of, but this card says if Spinning Wheel Kick was the last attack this combat chain, this has at the beginning of the reaction step, banish a random defending card from each chain link. Just on base, this card often says, if you block this, you lose 3 value, so you're probably not going to block it. But also, against Warriors specifically, if they have a Valiant Dynamo, then they've blocked somewhere on the chain. Maybe they block to stop your Katsu on hit, and you Cyclone Roundhouse them, so maybe they have a 50% chance to lose their Dynamo, or if they only blocked with Dynamo on, let's say, like a Whelming Gust Wave, then they just lose it forever. So that's really strong if that ever comes up. But Cyclone Roundhouse isn't the strongest card, the Warriors aren't the strongest. But in the Hunted, the new Warriors coming out, they'll probably be playing Dynamos. That card is really strong. So Cyclone Roundhouse will probably come in as a 1 over a 2 of to try and get some crazy hit on our Warrior opponents. I'm really excited for Retrace the Past coming out in the new set. I love Katsu, and I'd love for him to be playable again. And I think Retrace the Past actually does a pretty good job of bringing him back into playable status. If I'm sure he's not going to be like a tier 1 deck. He is just a little inconsistent, and even when he had Bonds and Art of War, he wasn't, a tier 1 deck. But I think this could bring him somewhere solidly like Rogue or tier 2 status. So I'm very excited for this new set coming out.